Join Painting and Travel from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, starting with a day sail with Sarah's cousin. Then head north through popular summer spots along Maine's rocky coast and watch Roger paint the cliffside, Bass Harbor Head Light Station.
Welcome. We're underway along the rugged coast of Maine, headed north. Thank you for joining Painting and Travel. We're happy you could be here to see some of the sights with us on the way up to Bass Harbor Head Light Station, one of about 80 lighthouses spread across Maine's spectacular coast. It stands 56 feet tall and was built in 1858. The light marks the entrance to Bass Harbor, located on the southwestern side of Mount Desert Island, and it's the only lighthouse on the island. It has a 4th order Fresnel lens, and it was automated in 1974. After you get to the bottom of the stairs, it's kind of a rugged climb around the rocks, but this gives you a great view of the cliffside lighthouse, the very subject Roger will paint.
Even though the center of interest for this painting will be the lighthouse, really this painting is more about these rocks and the texture in these rocks more than anything. It's the Bass Head Lighthouse in Maine. So this is a 16 by 20 inch masonite board primed with gesso, and earlier I toned this with a bit of burnt sienna and burned umber. And one of the easiest ways I found to tone a board is just to squirt some paint on there with a little bit of water from my atomizer and then just smear that around. It just makes it quick and simple, quick and easy. All right, I'm going to start with these rocks. I've sketched the composition with some pastel pencil, and then I went over it in some places with a graphite pencil, because I think when I put my paints on here, a lot of this pastel pencil will sort of disappear with the acrylic paints. On my palette here, I have a number of colors. Many of them I may not even use, but they're out here in case I want them. I have black, titanium white, ultramarine blue, cerulean blue, Indian yellow, cadmium yellow, alizarin crimson, cadmium red, my 3 earth colors, burnt umber, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, and I have one green, which is chromium oxide green. This here is just a little bit of water, so I can dip my brush into some clean water. My water to wash my brush is right down below me here. This is one thing that is very important for me, a little atomizer. And I can spray that board to keep that a little bit damp. That helps these paints flow on much easier than on a dry board. Okay, well, I'm going to start with these rocks and all that texture. I'll pick up some burnt umber, ultramarine blue, and really this is not much to it here. What I want to do is sort of vary the colors, mostly dark values. So I'll pick up a number of colors here. I'll make some warmer and some a little bit cooler. This is being applied quite thin. See how that moisture, a little bit of moisture on that board helps this paint just fly on there, just go on very quickly. Right up here, the colors are a bit warmer. I'm going to take a tiny bit of yellow ochre, put that in there. And I want this brushwork to be quite rough. And the reason is because all these rocks have so much texture in them that I want to just make it easy on myself and create as much texture as I can just by using the brush and so on. Now, since this is acrylics and since this dries very quickly, I'm going to take my atomizer here And in just a matter of a few seconds, maybe 30 seconds or so, I can spray this with my atomizer. Now I'm going to spray this with some larger droplets of water. Now if I give this a hard squeeze there, that will give me some fine droplets, but if I just squeeze that a little bit like that, my droplets will be a little bit larger. So I want to get somewhere in between there, and I'm going to spray that. And in almost no time at all, what's going to happen is those droplets of water are going to absorb this dark paint that I just put on here. And with a dry brush, I'm going to just very lightly drag it over and pick up those small droplets of water, which will have absorbed that dark paint. And that will leave me with a lot of little tiny rock textures down here. Now, if this is done too soon, it won't work. If this dark paint dries too much, it won't work either. So it's a matter of timing on this. Now, I can do this more than once. So I think I'm going to wait a few more minutes, and I'm going to spray it one more time. This is dried for just a moment or two, so I'm going to give this another spray. Take my brush, I have to be sure this is dry. And I'm going to drag this over it once again. There, I can see it's even picking up more of that texture. And this has to be done with a very light touch, very light touch. And I'm using my brush on the side. I'm not using it straight on. That would dig into that too much. Now here's what happens if the paint is too wet. It does not pick up those drops. It just smears the paint and sort of blends that all together. So there I've got a lot of interesting texture without having to do a lot of work. Now this has to dry some more before I continue.
While this stage of Roger's painting dries, we'll share more of our travels. Here are a few other things we did before we reached Bass Harbor. We stopped in Massachusetts at my cousin's place on Cape Cod. He's an avid sailor. The weather was perfect, so we ambled out on the pier while Charles took the dinghy and rowed over to his sailboat. We watched him hoist the sail, then he deftly sailed over and picked us up, leaving the standard poodle behind for now. One good advantage of being in someone else's boat is that you don't have to think about the wind or steering, allowing for a relaxing glide across the water, feeling a sense of lightness and well-being. I suppose Charles has been sailing for a good 6 decades and still seems to enjoy every minute of it. Maybe it's because you're consumed by an activity that can change on the whim of the wind or the weather or hitting a sandbar. It was a brief but lovely sail. We waved hello to the other day sailors, also using a single sail, felt the salt spray, and admired the large summer homes. We were completely engaged in the moment. Well, that was great fun. We were enthusiastically greeted on our return, said our goodbyes, and continued north. On our route, we'll pass through several well-known towns on the way up to Bass Harbor. As you can imagine, during the summer months, these places are brimming with people who like to enjoy the beach, go sailing, or motorboating. Camden Harbor was filled with watercraft and extremely picturesque. Many day trippers come up from Boston and other close cities to have lunch and go shopping or perhaps take a hike in a nearby park. Plus, there's an assortment of tourists from various countries who have heard about Maine's unique beauty and want to see it for themselves. Not to mention loads of photographers and painters who revel in the plentiful scenes that regularly occur, capturing what they can digitally or on canvas. We certainly took a lot of photographs to remember our trip by. Late afternoon, we arrived at Cadillac Mountain in the Acadia National Forest on Mount Desert Island, which means we summited to the highest point on the eastern seaboard in the U.S. This is part of the Appalachian Mountains and has a truly panoramic view. You can see islands in the distance. Maine has around 3,000 of them. And from October until March, it's the first place to see the sunrise in the United States. We followed the view as long as we could while descending Cadillac Mountain, heading towards Bar Harbor. Now for Bar Harbor, located a few minutes away from Bass Harbor, where the light station is. Bar Harbor is one of the most popular and well-known destinations in Maine. Some people arrive by yacht and experience firsthand the gorgeous harbor dotted with little rocky islands topped with tall green fir trees. The famous Bar Harbor Inn is an attractive place to spend a leisurely afternoon, comfortably seated, observing the activities. We had some lunch and enjoyed the lovely garden displaying summer flowers. Tourists were buying tickets for various harbor tours, but we didn't feel the need of going anywhere. We just watched the sails catching the wind and tried to take in the iconic Maine scenery in hopes of remembering this pleasant afternoon for future reference. It's always good to have a beautiful place in your memory bank to revisit when you need it. The highlight of this trip is the Bass Harbor Light Station, which was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1988. It's one of the most photographed lighthouses in all of New England.
I think I'll start up here with some of the trees. I always like to start with my darks first and work towards my lights. It's not always the case, but generally speaking. Ultramarine blue and cadmium yellow. No, that's just too green. Let's put more blue in that, maybe a touch of black. These trees have to be very dark, at least to start with. You know, greens can be made in so many different ways. Here we'll put yellow and black. And yellow and black makes a pretty good green. If I want to tone that down a little bit, I can add some red to it. I'll add more lighter colors over the top of these dark greens, but I want the greens to appear first. Then I can work the lights into the darks. While these areas of rocks continue to dry, I'll start to place the sky in basically a very light blue, but I don't want to get it real blue. I just want to get that more gray than blue. So I'll put some black in there. It is a very blue sky in the photograph, but I don't want to bring so much attention to this sky. I really want all the attention to go on these rocks and the lighthouse down here. So if I were to put a very bright blue sky in there, it would just take the eye away from where I want the interest to be. I'm just going to cut around this lighthouse. This is a new brush, so it has a nice chisel edge on it. So it's easy to cut around things like this. Now let me smooth out this background. Just take this large brush and just go back and forth in every direction, and that will smooth that out. Now right now this sky is just too monochromatic. I want to have some variations in that sky. I think a few clouds might be nice. Put out a little more white here. I think I want it lighter right here because this is the dark part of the lighthouse. And to bring attention to that, I can have dark against light. And that will bring attention to that area. So I'll make this slightly lighter in this area. It will bring the focus up there. All right, this is pretty much dry. So now I can start to define some of these rocks in here. And I have my monitor right up here to my right. It has my reference photograph in it. And I think I will start by taking some dark color. This can be mixed with pretty much any few colors, as long as it's dark. Burnt umber and ultramarine blue are always a good bet for that sort of thing. Now, as I thought, I did lose all my sketching in here where those rocks are, but this is pretty much an arbitrary sort of a pattern anyway, so that doesn't really bother me a whole lot. I'll just sketch these in here again. It helped to sketch them in the first time. That way I became familiar with this composition a little bit more before I started. So even though I lost those lines, I don't feel like that's too much of a great loss. So all these rocks down here by the beach, this is where the high tide comes in, so these are much darker. They get all that algae and everything else on them. Just a lot of rough brushwork here. That's really, I don't want to blend out anything or get it too smooth, because I want to keep all this interesting texture. Now, I'm not using any white down here at all, not yet. If I were to use white, white is opaque, so any texture that I have on here, that white would just eliminate it, and I certainly don't want to do that. I want to reserve that white for the accents and the highlights. Right up here, these rocks appear more blue. So I'll put some cerulean blue in there. I'm putting this on quite thin, and that way, again, I won't lose my nice texture down there. Even these areas where the water is dripped down make some interesting variations in these rocks. Let's get up here to the lighthouse. And I'll just start to indicate that. This brush I'm using here is called a Bright, and it has fairly short hair on it and a nice chisel edge. I'm putting this on a bit thin, and some of this burnt sienna color, this warmth, can come through, because all these rocks are going to influence the look of this building here. All these rocks are going to reflect light up onto the side of the building. This is catching light from the sun, of course. It looks like it's a bit of an overcast sky, so there's no real bright highlights on here, but the sun is coming down this way. I can see that because of a shadow here, but the light is very soft in this painting. I'll go back up, put a little more in these trees while I'm waiting. And there's some green grass in this area. I grabbed my fan brush. These fan brushes are just great. They have so many uses. And I'll just work on these trees. Put a nice soft look on them just by tapping in here. And they go all the way down towards this shore. Of course, they're going further back, so they're going to get smaller here. And not so distinct. They'll become a little bit softer as they come back into this area. I'm going to spray my palette here, keep that wet. All right, now I'm going to begin with some highlights and accents in on these rocks. Now, since this is opaque, it's pretty much going to cover up any of the texture I have under here, but that's just part of it, part of the way it is. And I can add some more texture on top of this if I want later on, but I wanted to wait until now in order to start with any opaque paints. So I start with my darks and work towards my lights. Now I'm not looking so much now at my reference photo, although I am looking at it, but all these textured areas in here as sort of a little bit of a road, as sort of a road map to where I might bring in some of these accents. I like to jump around in my painting and work on one area for a while, then another area and another area, so I don't complete any one area. I want the painting to sort of get completed all at the same time. So really at any time I can stop on a painting and say it's completed to that point. So let me just put in a few more details in here, just the start of these details, just laying them in. Here's a window up here. Here we got an eave of the house. I'll jump back down to the rocks one more time. Oh, I think I'll clean my palette. I spray it just a little with some water, and then I use a razor blade. And now I won't be mixing a lot of muddy colors. I'm going to spray my board again, but this time it's not to make those droplets. It's just to put a little bit of lubrication on this board so I can more easily scumble some of these paints on here. Now these are all being put on quite thin. I'm just letting the brush do a lot of this work. This is very subconscious. This is not, I'm not thinking out every stroke here. I'm just letting this brush sort of feel its own way. I'm going to put out one more color. This is cobalt turquoise. Take that and mix it with some cerulean blue. I'm going to put this water right in here. Now I hold my finger on this stick, ruler, put my brush on the top of this, and then when I drag it along here, I can get a perfectly straight and horizontal line. Just like that. I think while I'm dealing with some water, I can add some water in here. There's none in my reference photograph, but since the tide goes up and down so much in Maine, there's always these little tidal pools left. Take a little bit of white. Yeah, let's add some surf out here. At this point, I want to start to put in some sort of bright accents. My reference photo, it's a beautiful photograph, but it's doesn't have anything that really jumps out very much as far as color goes. So I think I will add some of these brighter colors right up in here. It's maybe too much, I don't know. And these trees down here, they're in the distance. So I'm going to take my blue. So with a dry brush, I'm going to scumble some blue on there. Give that little bit of atmospheric perspective. It's a nice thing about acrylics is they do dry so very fast that changes are quite easy to make. And I don't have to wait long periods of time before I make them. As opposed to oils where, you know, this could get very muddy and dirty if I'm not careful. I do like to work in oils too, but I switch back and forth. Now what I'm going to do is draw some of the rocks. In other words, basically outline them. I'm using this bright again, fairly good sized brush for this, but I'm using it just on the edge, right on that little edge, so I can make a fine line. And these rocks down here, I'm going to make these much cooler. Back up to the lighthouse, I will add some of these shadows in here. And the reason it's bluish gray is because These shadows are catching the light from the sky. So the sky is blue, so the shadow will be blue. And where the glass goes around this lantern room, it'll be slightly darker. So just put a wash of color in there. And take some of my lighter colors, some white, and just suggest a hint of that railing right around here. Now right down here, we have some trees way in the distance. So I'm going to mix up a light green, and I'm going to put those trees way back here, just sort of barely visible. It's kind of a nice touch. Put yellow right here on the edge of this lighthouse to warm that up, and right here too. Down towards the bottom, we have some pools of water. I'm going to break from my reference photograph and put a larger pool of water right in here, just to bring more interest down to that area. Don't want to make it too bright because I don't want these things to fight. You know, I just don't want this to be so prominent that it will take away the interest from here. I don't want the eye to keep bouncing back and forth and back and forth. So I'll play this down some and add the addition of a few more waves. Well, this painting was all about texture, and I used those few methods to create as much of that as I could. I kept the sky simple so as not to fight with this texture, and I kept the detail to a minimum with this lighthouse, even though this is the center of interest.
For more information about painting and travel with Roger and Sarah Bansemer, visit paintingandtravel.com.